All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Alchemy Podcast, here with an absolute legend, Kevin Swiss. OG Kevin, I met you in 2009.
I think we're on a cruise ship together, maybe?
2010, 2009.
Yeah.
When I was just a young pup in the door-to-door space. And all these years later, still got a finger in the door-to-door space for both of us. You got a full thing running. When I look back at my early Vivint days, I think of Kevin Swiss, and it's like Kevin brought culture. Kevin brought competition. You were the one that really brought in this unique angle that door-to-door had never seen, that really brought in kind of culture, competition, and swag.
Yeah.
And that wasn't anything I'd ever experienced before at any other corporation. Because, you have like these other basic jobs, and you come work at Vivint, and then it's like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like cool swag, and I never experienced that before. And so when I think back to those days, it's like you're a very pivotal part that has made a lot of influence on a lot of other organizations of like how important it is to bring culture in, to bring swag, to compete and deliver an exceptional product. And so, if you look back at like Hall of Fame door-to-door people, it's like you're one of the OGs.
Yeah, that was amazing times, 100%. Yeah. And I would say partnering with Vivint, partnering with Todd Peterson, and kind of that group investment we made in, trying to create a great story. It really was about the sales force and everyone who was on that journey. And to bring that together, culture is a amazing mechanism, all time for sure. Not just door to door, I'd say Utah.
Yeah.
That footprint is, those fingerprints of Vivint are everywhere. And it was great to be a part of that 100%.
Yeah. And remind me, because you have like, it's a funny story, but what was your badge ID?
30.
30. You're the 30th employee.
Yeah.
And I work with door-to-door Vivint guys now, and their badge IDs are like 50,600 and whatever.
Yeah, a few 100,000.
Yeah.
So I haven't even thought about it in a while. Yeah, that's crazy.
But like an OG guy. And so I would love to hear, because now you're chief marketing at NuSun.
Correct.
So many dogs at NuSun.
Yes.
Now, so many dogs. We could talk about that. But I'm curious about what was it like being a part of Vivint Apex, really.
Yes.
Apex days, early days, young Todd Peterson, so much talent, right? What was that experience like being a part of something, so magical?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was amazing. I actually started in sales. I tell this story. I was in college, and there came this point where I sort of needed an answer for money, at least some money. And I needed an answer for housing, and door-to-door kind of brought that to the table, and I got recruited, and we were an ADT dealer, then we were a Monotronics dealer. Somewhere in there I met Todd, and none of us really understood what the company would eventually become and mean to Utah business and mean to direct sales in general. It's a national story. And so obviously super lucky to be a part of it, but it was cool because I happened to be, late 20s and had a good talent and a good interest in media, brand. I definitely get a lot of, I think the competitions and the general culture and the brand and merchandise, it's everyone's favorite. So it comes up a lot, but the storytelling, the idea of saying, who are we? And we're going to communicate that very, very well. And we're going to attract the type of people who would thrive here. It was just special because back then, it was before Web 2. There weren't smartphones. Everything was in the initial stages. Photoshop had only been around for about a decade. And I was outside of college and getting into my young professional timing with a company that was bringing in, tens of millions of dollars at the time. It was just a good partnership. And so it was special to be part of something that had this really great trajectory, but to feel like you got to be part of the ride and you got to make some of the ride happen. And like you said, it's one thing to kind of, people built castles long before your time and then you go live in them. It's another thing to get to take part in building the castles. That was really, really awesome.
Yeah, it really was a special time. And as more time passes and I look back at those years, it really was like, for me at least, being there from like 2010 to 2014, that was like the amount of talent that came out of Vivint and that group was spectacular. And I want to go back to what you said about storytelling, because the best businesses are the ones that tell the best stories, right? Any brand, any industry, right? Whoever tells the best story wins, right? So what are some of the secrets to telling, a good story that captures the heart and the mind of people? And, because that was your job.
Sure.
So what are the secrets?
That's another good one. I love how you're guiding this thing. Usually we spend so much time on other items. This is like my favorite. You know, there's a couple things that obviously we have kind of a statement at NuSun and just in general, really, but it's like know your audience. And so telling a story begins with the idea of, you know, why do we exist in the first place? You know, what is our value offering? And you have to kind of paint a picture of why it matters. You know, I've listened to your stuff for years, you know, and you're one of the best at helping people see, hey, if you can align meaning to things, if you can align purpose to things, you bring out your best ability. That's all that storytelling really is. It's basically trying to resonate and connect with audiences that you can make a big impact with. And so it's kind of like you begin with, like we say, begin with the end in mind. That's Covey. And then the story is about kind of reverse engineering of like, how can we go make an impact or a difference for the audience we feel we can, you know, kind of help or, you know, do something transformational. And so if you get really, really clear, you're always telling a story. The question just is, are you doing it by design? You know what I mean? If you're not aware of the story you're telling, you're not doing it with intention, someone else is going to tell it for you. You know, we hear that all the time. So I think the key is having a plan and actually putting in the time. People, they say marketing, they say sales, and it's like, well, stories change the world, you know? And I mean that in the most non-cliche way.
Yeah.
So I think the secret sauce is like, do you have a plan? Do you have a storytelling anthem? Do you have like a way and a meaning behind everything you're doing?
Yeah, one thing that comes in my head as I'm like thinking of who's going to be listening to this podcast, it's a lot of young guys who are trying to build their brand and build an organization. And, you know, the game is so much different today than it was when we were there. But like it's changed quite a bit. And so someone listening to this is probably like, okay, I need to tell my story. I need to tell that my organization has a story to attract, you know, my ideal client. For someone who's starting off, what are some good questions that they can ask themselves to create a captivating story?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have another sort of statement we like, which is, you know, you're trying to be somehow do things a little bit better, you know, kind of do similar things and do them better than the next. Well, what you're really trying to say is like, what makes me different? And your separators, your differentiators. So if someone's trying to tell a story, you got to say, hey, how am I going to stand out? And that's kind of where you begin. We could go down the rabbit hole of everything I've been trying to do at NuSun these last 2 years to help that brand be truly different, where they're like, hey, we know of NuSun and those guys are different than everyone else.
Totally.
That's what we've been doing.
Yeah, totally.
And so I would say for someone starting out, trying to shape that brand, you don't realize it, but as everyone's out there like, oh, we're doing unique, it's like they all have a year-end awards. They all have branded merchandise. They all have competitions. And next thing you know, it's like everyone's actually telling the same story. A guy walking around on the street in a video with an iPad looking and pointing it. Yeah. I mean, tell me all the brands you've seen.
Everyone has done that.
Every clip does that. So, And again, I'm just saying, in answer to your question, start with, hey, what actually makes me different, and lean in there.
Yeah, and on that too, that comes up for me is also with identity, right? So many people, you know, I look back at my career and I worked with two great leaders. I worked with Brad Rossiter, right? Beast. And when I think about Brad and the identity of the person that joins Brad's group, it's fun, it's adventurous. We're going to go surfing and we're going to take the sleds out and we're going to be crazy. And on 4th of July, we're going to have a Roman candle fight in the parking lot.
That's right.
You know, and so that is unique and different. And people are attracted to that identity. And I think that's why he's able to grow such an incredible region.
Yeah. And I think also, you know, talking about Brad, he's one of the most talented individuals in my life I've ever known. And, I would say it takes one to know one. For someone who's kind of made his living on leaning into their talents, because most of door-to-door is talent doesn't matter. Whoever works the hardest, that's it, game over. And I'm like, well, isn't it better to have talent and work ethic? Brad is known for being a star, but he's so grounded.
Totally.
He's the humblest dude.
Homie.
But he's like, he will school you on the course. He will school you on the ski slopes. He'll school his family. The dude is an absolute talent dog, and he could be a star, and he just never acts like it. And to me, that's the brand. That's why guys want to follow him, because they're like, dude, this guy has everything in perspective. Yeah.
And I think of Brad, and the identity and the story. And then I look at someone who came underneath with Brad too, is Zach Anderson.
Yeah.
Right. Zaza has a totally different story.
Yeah.
Right. It's young. It's guys who are into fashion, and everyone on his team swagged out with the freaking chains and the clothes and the hair, and that's really unique to door to door. And that's why they stand out.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it's to your point, it's telling your story, what makes you different.
Yeah.
And two great examples right there of people who are doing it differently and saw the success because of it.
And also, there's no like punchline around, oh, you're good enough, but you're not too good and stuff. It really is just saying, I actually am comfortable in my skin, and I'm not too worried about what the environment is telling me about me. I'm good with me. Let's go own that. And then suddenly you've got something going,
And then what comes up for me at that is Jordan Binning.
Yeah.
Like JB is a dog.
Yeah.
And everyone knows he's a dog, and he will tell you that he's a dog.
Yeah.
Right. But not in an arrogant way.
Sure.
It's just like this.
In a Michael Jordan type way.
Like I'm him.
Yeah.
And like, that's take it or leave it. And so, you've really been around a lot of incredible talent. And so one question I want to get back to before we lose it is, you were a part of this door-to-door craze, companies popping up and leaving. This company comes out, and now this is kind of the new hot company, and then they're bankrupt. And then and then everyone's going here, right?
Yeah.
What are the differences you saw in what is going to create a company to have longevity versus the ones that fizzled out? What were the differences you saw?
I do. I think there's some guiding principles. Some of it's just competence, and good instincts. I'll lean on the story where I am. CJ Adamson, co-founder, COO at NuSun, Jordan Binning, founder. I mean, these guys have been working on that project for about 5 years. And there was a time in 2022 where if you had like a pulse, you could go out and dominate solar. I mean, it was kind of embarrassing, the amount of like transaction that happened. And it's just like, this is a kind of a bunch of rodeo clowns that are winning. And even in that environment, great leadership doesn't lose their heads. They're like, hey, it's funny, and I lean on these stories, but Coach K said this statement once about organizing the Redeem team. And it was the first time Kobe ever, it was kind of our spirit animal at NuSun, Kobe Bryant. It's the first time he'd been on an Olympic team ever. And Coach K said, I needed to bring in guys that understood legacy. Now in our space, even companies named after it usually think, oh, it's about paying it forward and leaving this message behind you and like doing something that lives on. And he said, no, like understanding legacy means you have a very acute idea that it won't always be this way. It's the carpe diem energy. And guys who understand that, they treat when they're up differently. They treat when they're down, they know it, nothing lasts. So when you talk about what's the difference, if you look at a chessboard, you got one company, it's like, we're going to move the queen out there in the middle and go attack right out of the gate, and they expose and they lose the game. It's about tempo, it's about patience, and it's about those moments where, understanding being conservative and not taking on the wrong types of debt and being very, very judicious on who you partner with, understanding, well, who are they trying to serve? Why do they exist? I think, again, that core, like we said at the beginning, what is our purpose in the marketplace? And there's a lot of people that are just like to make killer money, and we love basking in the light of success. We have a pretty well-known kind of lifestyle brand now that's out there called Loyalty is Rare. I mean, these guys base their entire approach on loyalty. And when you do that and you're loyal to where you got where you are, the sales force, the people that grinded, you never lose track. You see so many brands like flash in the pan and fizzle out because they got kind of their hot hand and they forgot completely who they were the moment that success came. So I think it's about being patient. It's about, being thoughtful and not losing yourself in the highs and the lows.
You're right on the money. It was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. If you could count to 10 backwards,
I know.
And knock for 6 hours, you can make 150 grand.
Yep.
Right. And that's just not the case anymore. The industry's changed quite a bit. And I'm curious from your perspective, because when you were transitioning from Vivint, you probably had a lot of options. You're one of the OG talents in the industry. Why did you pick NuSun, and what drew you to CJ and Jordan? So
it's funny now because, this last few years has been pretty tough on a lot of these companies. A lot of the ones that had compelling offers, and I'm at home with Andrea literally last night. I'm like, man, if you really think about what's going on with them, and them, ones that were kind of participating in that, that scenario where I was interviewing a lot, I'm always like, man, quietly, thank God, because NuSun has like the most elite pay file in the country right now for an industry where everyone is down. Everyone is kind of, kind of licking their wounds and kind of, hey, win another day.
Yeah.
Where the way these guys have played the last 3 or 4 years is having them win. But it really just came down to like a couple little moments. The biggest one is that when you've had a leader like Todd Peterson for so many years, you really know that high level A player, like elite of elite CEOs, leaders, it's rare. It's kind of like an endangered species. And when you've kind of seen the bad actors everywhere, when you have a chance to follow a Jordan Binning and partner with him, that's probably like 80% of it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't really care how it goes, but it's like you kind of trust in who's in the room. Am I proud to be in the room? Do I feel like in our lanes we're the best? The reality is most of the rooms, at least in the door-to-door space in that experience, in a good way, he's intimidating to all the other CEOs.
Yeah.
So that was one. And then the second one was, and it was something that CJ said in the recruiting process, because it was kind of like 7 meetings. I was kind of done, after all those acquisitions at Vivint, and I kind of felt like if I can just change my number and disappear from all this like high school nonsense, it'd be nice. I felt like I'd accomplished everything, and I really did. Like everything I wanted to do at Vivint, everything I wanted to kind of be a part of, and everything I felt like I could learn kind of happened. So it was time to say, nothing will top this.
Yeah.
And CJ was kind of like, he said in this meeting, he's like, that's ridiculous. He's like, you've never taken everything you've learned and shown what you can do with it. Like, that's weird. You gained all this stuff and now you just want to be forgotten. You're just going to hang it up. He's like, why don't you want to do it one more time? And that was like massive, and he is crazy because he is more, kind of like in some of those conversations, definitely Jordan speaks a lot more, but CJ came with this hammer and it just kind of made me really think about it. And then I was kind of like, you know what, like this could be special. What would happen if I was in the C-suite and I actually could really like dictate and have some autonomy to go build a brand? And I just had to do it. And thank God I did. Like, I'm grateful.
Say more about when you said you had to do it. Because that's a conversation I love having with people, right? Is like so many times in our life we are at a crossroad where we have options, whether it's career or relationship or where we live or what we're doing. And so many times we have all these opportunities in front of us, and it's really hard to make a decision. And a common phrase that I hear from people is like, "Oh, I just had to do this," right? Can you share more about like what that feels like for you? What that's like? Is there a process you do?
Sure.
Do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you write it out? Pros and cons? Like when you're making these decisions, how does K-Swiss come to consciousness?
Yeah, man, you're really good at this, and I've known you for a long time, and you're gonna love this answer. But I'm an experienced guy. And when I say experience them all, that's what I live for. I call it the undiscovered country. Anyone that gets in a ship and sails out to sea to discover, you don't know. You're doing things with no guarantee. So for someone like me, who just gets so much peace of mind from the unplanned, from the let's go find out, what do we not know? They say it's like you don't know what you don't know. That is dynamic. And so when he kind of put it out there that way of like, he's like, you have no idea what you're capable of. You have no idea how this is going to go. Wow. Are you sure you want to walk away from the possibilities? I was like, I had to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's how I'm built.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. It's kind of that. I mean, when people
it ties into the story, right?
Yeah.
It's the story you're telling about yourself, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then they say that, some of these guys like Hermosi says, if you knew you were going to succeed and it was a guarantee, it wouldn't be worth doing. Right. Part of going after that Olympic gold is knowing that no one gets to win it. Yeah. And that in and of itself is like the power of doing it. And so that hits me hard. And so, between getting the chance to partner with Jordan and circle back, we always had a lot of success together. He dominated my programs at Vivint and we had a great partnership. But that little fire starter from CJ got the deal done.
Shout out CJ.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of something I talk to my clients all the time where it's like, if you knew exactly how your life was going to unfold, it wouldn't be worth living.
100%.
Right. And you think about like when you're playing Mario on Super Nintendo, if every level you just ran across and jumped the flag and it went down and there was no obstacles.
Yep.
It wouldn't be fun. You wouldn't play the game. You'd be bored. You'd be bored of it, right?
Yeah.
The reason you play the game is because each level gets a little bit harder and a little bit harder, and there's more unknowns, and what's the next level going to look like, which pulls you in.
Absolutely.
And so it seems like that's kind of this new chapter for you. Before we kind of navigate into NuSun, another question I had for you as I was driving over here is, you're one of the very few people who have experienced so many different leaders, right? You've had the leaders above you, Vivint and Todd right now, who's just OG, but you also got to see young leaders come up and change and evolve and grow. And what are the characteristic traits of someone who makes it and becomes established as a leader and creates a real reputation for themselves versus someone who might have a good year and then falls off? Like, what are the characteristic traits you see from those who are able to create long-term success?
I'm sure everyone has a unique answer. A big one is confidence. I actually think it's okay to be like, hey, your confidence grows the more experience you get and the effort you put in. You know, we love that comment from TP, you know, life responds to effort. That builds confidence. But then there's some inborn things where I think people believe something about themselves. And, you know, we want to follow someone who's got a lot of conviction, you know, someone who's like, I know who I am and I know where I'm going. And it's just like, hey, you know, that there's something very appealing about that, you know, very engaging. So I'd say confidence is a big one. I think motive matters, you know. It's like, why does someone want to lead? I think there's a real balance. I think you can say, oh, I want to be a servant leader and I care about people, and that's great. I think those individuals who are really motivated by impact, that are really motivated by, hey, there's something bigger going on here and I want to play a role. My ambition requires it. My desire to make good use of every minute I have requires it. I think those leaders seem to, you know, we have a lot of them, right? That we both know closely. And a lot of these guys, they're just kind of like, you know, they're just obsessed with making a difference. We like to say at NuSun, yeah, we're in the talent acquisition business, but really we're in the changing lives business. Yeah. And the things that fires up our guys the most is seeing people go from, you know, no community to an amazing one that makes them their best, from, you know, no portfolio, no plan for the future, to like using their resources in amazing ways to get ahead, to guys that were shy, that, you know, couldn't hold down a conversation, that turn into these dogs that are just kind of like inspiring. It's like that process of human development in a very capitalistic environment. We're like, it's performance oriented. You don't get a voice if you're not performing. Performance is reality. You perform well, everyone's here what you have to say. If you don't, sit down. Yeah. Like I thrive around that type of energy where there's no handouts. The politics is to the side. It's like, well, whoever is dominating, we want to hear from them. Not really interested from the guy trying to lead from the group chat. You know what I mean? It's like, that guy's not here because he's out closing another deal. Yeah. So that's kind of my response.
Yeah, it reminds me of, you know, Tony Robbins talks about there's 3 energetic states that we can be in at any time. And he says that the middle one's a trap. And the lowest level energetic state is a fearful state. So we'll use the example of, like, let's say it's Saturday, it's the cup, you're going out selling, right? How are you going to do if you're in a fearful state? Yeah. Just not very well. You're going to get rejected. Someone's going to close the door on them. You're probably going to quit.
We made it this far. We're not going to win. Yeah. I got a lot of anxiety about it.
I'm anxious, right? Someone's rude to you on the door. You're going to go pout and, you know, go back to your car. You might even finish the day. Yeah. Right. You don't want to be in a fearful state. He says there's a trap, though, is in the second state of being hopeful. Yeah. Hopeful is a trap. Yeah. Because if I go out on Saturday to go knock for the cup and I'm hopeful, my energy is a little wishy-washy. Yeah. The tonality of my voice kind of upticks. Yeah. I'm kind of like needy.
Hope isn't a strategy.
I hope it works. Yeah. You know, you might sell 1 or 2. Yeah. Please do it. You know. Yeah. Right. Versus, you know, to your point, you just said the energetic state you want to be into is absolute certainty. Yeah. Like I actually remember texting you one of these days. It was 2014. Yeah. It was Saturday. Yeah. Right. I got up at 6 a.m. It's before Street Genie. Yeah. I'm like, I'm putting 9 Vivint folders in my binder today because I'm selling 9 and no one is going to beat me on Saturday. Yeah. Like, and I was absolutely certain I'm going to go be the top rep at Vivint today.
No one loved the game more than Prime Doug Cartwright.
Oh, yeah.
100%. It was crazy. Your love of the doors was wild.
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah. Like, there was like something that activated in me where I just loved, nothing got me more fired up than selling door to door on a Saturday. Yeah. And I'll claim, like, I don't think on just, I mean, there are a lot of reps here better than me, but I'd say just for Saturday production, you know, that was my day.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm like, I'm getting up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm going to freaking, I knew that if I could knock on someone's door before they woke up and I could have coffee with them, that I was out on the doors early enough, But
Love
there was something of just like competing and the camaraderie, and it just captivated, and I think a lot of that had to do with you and your ability to make the competitions a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. You highlighting people on the podcast, great swag, great culture, great story. And so, you played a part in that whole role. And I think a lot of companies now just don't have that piece and are missing it.
It never ceases to amaze me just how well it hits with the individuals who are good at this job, to this day, so many years later, it's just like the people who will perform well in this that we're trying to bring to the table. The job isn't for everyone, like any job isn't, but for that particular group that comes from a bunch of different backgrounds, most of them respond really, really well to turning into a sport, for sure.
One thing I wanted to touch on was the Kevin Swiss I met in 2010. It's very different than the Kevin Swiss that's sitting in the chair across from me today.
Yeah.
I know you just had a big...
Well, I'm old, man.
Yeah. You've changed.
Just kidding. I'm young. I'm playing.
Yeah. There's been a lot of changes in your life. And, I know you're just coming off celebrating a recent a wedding.
Yeah.
That seemed... I was following the stuff on Instagram and you guys went all out.
Yeah.
Right. So talk to me about this version of Kevin and how you've transformed and changed. And it's been cool to see from my perspective.
Yeah, I love that question. I would just say, something I say at home all the time is that, it's important to see your progress, but always understand a person is never finished. I'm going to and plan on living to a very, 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 very old age. Like my life is, I'm in the middle of it, but it's all evolution. I don't have a lot of, hey, I'll go back here, change this there. It's all about preparing me for the chapters that I'm in. We also say, the golden moment or the golden era is where you are today.
Yeah.
It's not behind you, it's not in front of you, it's this moment. And so, to kind of touch on that, it's like I absolutely, found my other half. My dad was texting me. We went over to his house, Andrea, my wife, and I, and we went for a very traditional Thanksgiving kind of pastry baking that my dad does every year. My mom unfortunately passed away from cancer about 4.5 years ago, and he used to host it all my life. And Andrea is literally like a world-class chef just on the side.
Wow.
Her love language is cooking for people. She's just insanely talented. She's like, let's go pull up. This will be fun. I like being part of this. And we had this amazing night together. My brother was there with his kids and all that stuff. And my dad texted me and he's just like, it warms my heart to see you so happy. And to be honest, when people would say that to me, and this is touching on what you said about, maybe perceived change. At first I'd get insecure or almost kind of protective, defensive, just like, what do you mean? I'm always at whatever. What are you saying? But when people start giving you the same feedback in all these different settings, I'm like, there must really be something different in my aura. There must be something. And the truth is, it's like, I found my person. That's the facts. And the way it is waking up, next to her and making our plans together and just organizing, I've never been more, this thrill of, you said, oh my God, we're alive. Now what? It's like, I'm in the middle of that. One of the things the guys at NuSun and anyone who knows me professionally knows, I'm very much, the most important thing you're going to do is live your life. If you can make sure your career enhances that and plays a key role in you becoming who you're supposed to become, and hopefully maybe generating the resources for the life living, do it. But for me, it will never define, hey, was he great or what legacy did he live? It's like, I want my career stuff to be a footnote. It's there to drive things like my life with Andrea and our plans. And so, I love that you asked me that question. And this is me from the most authentic place you can imagine. It's an evolution. And so when my dad, who's known me my whole life and seen me at my best and my worst, he can see it and he sees the impact she's having on me. And, and I feel, she would tell you if she's here, her crew, her parents, her friends, her cousins, it's a little similar. And those that happened to be in New York last summer, a few months ago, we were all kind of emotional. A lot of people like, dude, you had me crying at this point and I wasn't going to cry. And then you said this and then everyone was crying. And they could just feel the sincerity of like, this is why we're alive, you know? And I'm not trying to drop a mic here. I'm just saying, you asked the question, this is what it really is.
Wow. Beautiful. I look at my dating journey as well, and it's had ups and downs and backs and forths. And, and I work with a lot of guys who are single, and I work with married guys too. But, what advice would you have? It sounds like you have a really beautiful marriage right now. Yeah. And you guys, like you said, my other half. So you guys work really, really well together. What advice would you have for someone who's maybe haven't found that person yet, know, and they're looking for that? What should they be looking out for? What are some red flags they should avoid? Sure. And what are some maybe lessons you learned along the way now that you've found your other half? Yeah.
So I have maybe a few different angles on this, but one that I think probably has the most structure to it that I actually saw presented from someone else that I use all the time is it's like, what's the difference? And they just talk about each of us individually are on a path. So we have expectations of what we believe a life well lived looks like. And most people in a healthy place, you actually get to the highest version of that life well lived with a partner. And so understanding, and trust me, I had years of being single, and there's amazing, I was definitely one of those ones that's like, hey, I need to kind of make sure I'm good no matter what's going on, because I have standards and I have something I want to make happen. And so I'm not going to just go fill this area of my life, for no good reason or for no very meaningful relationship. But the truth is that is living with a certain kind of, not like ceiling, but it's like, for me, the highest level of living that life well means having a partner. So what this individual taught was you need to select well. And when you select well, you just need to be really, really thoughtful on kind of who you are, what your interests are, how you operate in life, and try to find someone who sets your soul on fire. But then once that's there, you have to be willing to have the tough, super uncomfortable conversations about how are we going to manage money, and what's your plan with like having a family, and what does it mean as far as what I'm used to with my personal family, like parents and siblings, and how does that integrate, and like what's our background as far as everything from culture, family history. And sometimes it's like, man, this is hanging by a thread. You kind of lean into those tough conversations and you're like, this isn't going to work. It isn't going to work. But what you do is you say, this is a safe place. Tell me what a life well lived looks like, and feel safe to tell me it all. And if someone's like, having a family is not in the cards, or I don't want to do it, and someone's like, that is everything to me, there's kind of your answer. Right. And so you kind of work through it and make sure that there's enough things that match. So the reason that matters is because if you don't communicate it and you have this hope, you say this strategy of hope, of an expectation that isn't being met week after week, month after month, this underlying resentment starts to develop and it slowly erodes attraction.
Unspoken needs creates long-term resentment.
Yep. And that long-term resentment eventually makes us like, I'm not into this person
break
anymore.
The relationship.
And you're just kind of like, I don't feel what I felt. And what you don't realize is because that slowly that fire was doused, because of the fact that you didn't get on the same page about what you're trying to do together. And eventually you start getting very resentful because your partner's like making it so you're not happy. There's that piece. But what I would also just kind of the last thing I say, this is more of my personal take, is you have to prioritize it, and that may sound like, well, no, duh, we all want to prioritize a relationship, but how much self-sacrifice and abundance are you willing to bring to that? How many times are you willing to say sorry when it's probably not your fault? How many times are you willing to like give up the way would be comfortable for you and actually do the things? I had these things that I learned this lesson where I was like, hey, do I want to commit to being my best self? And sometimes people have an attitude of like, oh, I do this because it's really important to my partner. And that's a little bit of like, not insincere, but it's like, oh, I'm serving, I'm sacrificing. The higher level is, I need to get to a place where this is important to me. I need to go and meet them where they are and match them to a point where it's like, it doesn't matter what's going on with her. I love making the bed. And I'm not talking about that specifically,
Sure.
but I'm saying really important things where at first you think you're just doing a solid. You're like, I'm such a good husband, or I'm a good wife, and look at all this effort I put in. Where it's like, you need to do it sincerely because you want to do it.
How'd you make that shift?
Just time, you know what I mean? And to be honest, it's like when you've been around maybe a bit and you've kind of seen your best moments and more of your challenging moments, it's that whole, maybe I'm going to try to do something differently than I've done it in the past. You know, your ego quiets down quite a bit and you just start to realize like how much it matters to you to like have great people in your life more than I want to be right or more than I want to do it my way.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done a lot of self-assessment.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so, which I think is really important to kind of look back at it. And so, as you were navigating this newer relationship, I know this is a really hard question, but how did you know she was your partner? Was it like this instant, like, oh my gosh, this is her? You like knew right away, or was it something that you built over time?
It's actually both, because I treated the relationship differently from the beginning because I wanted it to be the one.
What do you mean?
So it's like, you know, it's not about not rushing into anything, but it's like if you want to build something that lasts, you're very thoughtful and you actually are patient and you kind of work your way through all the different scenarios to really make sure that, for example, I was grateful that I was in the place I was when I met Andrea, because I kind of had like really, for lack of a better way to say it, I'd been really working on myself to be worthy of an A player like her. But also I had standards too, where I was like, I want to be with someone who feels like, you know, they're getting something good in this relationship from me. And funny enough, we both had kind of been going through a big phase of that, of like, hey, I learned some lessons about myself. And when I get with the right person, this is the version of me that I'm going to have been really practicing on. So when I get to that high stakes level, I'm ready.
Yeah.
When these storms change, I want to come out of it ready. And so I knew within that moment we met, and, you know, I told my brother, who's my best friend, because I was actually leaving to go on a big photo shoot trip with the Boss in Greece for almost 2 weeks in Europe. And I said, not like I think this is the one, but I'm like, I want to take this really seriously. So I'm kind of glad I have this, like, because we were together for about 2 weeks and I left. And I was like,
space for it.
I need to like get ready because this is what I'm doing when I get back. And so when you say, did I know? I had already kind of channeled all my energy to really say, you know, I have a hand in how this turns out and I want to get it right. So obviously over time, when things work out and things come together, you're like, this is amazing. This is happening. But I think the intention in saying like, this is going to be it, I knew really early.
Well, and to your credit, it sounds like you put in a lot of work.
Yes.
To be able to put yourself in a situation to receive that.
Yes.
Right. You know, you did a lot of self-introspection.
Can I just say this? And the other thing is too, and I don't want to sleep on this, but it's like, you know, who we choose to be around us lets us know who we are. And when you believe something about yourself, you want to be in rooms where you're so proud and you're like, I need to level up. I need to be at my best or I won't be able to be part of this. That's who she is. And so when we talk about my progression, I absolutely have to give her a big piece of credit, because not only am like, hey, I need to raise my game because she's so gifted and she's got so much, you know, it's, if you really get to know her, it's like in every room, she's the alpha. But I think that's kind of both ways. Being around each other brings out our very best, and us at our best, you know, it's pretty awesome.
It reminds me of, I think it was Chris Williamson who talked about the Michelangelo effect. And what that is, you know, when you're with a partner, your partner sees Michelangelo inside of this stone.
That's it.
Right. And so your partner's chipping away at all the things that aren't Michelangelo.
10,000%.
And so you guys together, seems like, you know, you're really good for each other.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the thing is too, is just, and this goes back to the whole like select well and then have the conversations. We have a lot of the same convictions, you know what I mean, about what's important.
Would be an example of that.
You know, just kind of like, and this is kind of a tough one, but it's sort of like, you know, I asked her one time, you know, I'm in media. I love stories. So I'm like, this movie. And she's like, To be honest, I've never been much of a TV person, you know? I mean, we joke around because she loves Disney, you know, and kind of grew up coming to, you know, from Venezuela, coming to Disney World and stuff. But in general, it's just not really her thing. She's not passionate about some of the standard things that I think pull all of us in today's deal. I always thought, I'm like, wow, that's really inspiring. And so when we talk about convictions, I'm like, I kind of want to have someone with me and I want to be with them, where it's like, hey, if we have kind of the most important things to prioritize, what are they? And it's kind of like experiences, kindness, integrity, don't cut corners, and goodness. I mean, people who know me, it's like my family and other people that have known me through the journey. It's like, hey, you know, for better or worse, you know, Kevin can be pretty stubborn and, you know, pretty intense, and she'll call me out. You know what I mean? Yeah. She's just like, hey, you know, and it's just kind of like, I may fall short sometimes on who I want to be at my best, but I believe in that. You know what I mean? I always feel happier and better when I'm not an asshole, when I'm like nice and serving. That's who she is. And so it's kind of weird where it's like we both believe in it, but she's helping me level up. And there's some things on my side where I like help her, you know, gain her confidence and stand up for what she wants to be. And so I think just kind of prioritizing the most important things that you should be alive for, we're on the same page. We don't waste a lot of time.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are very much in sync.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you guys navigate conflicts? That's a question I love asking couples, because the reality is this conflict happens in every relationship.
Yeah.
And it seems to be something that we sweep under the rug and pretend like it doesn't happen. And the most, from my perspective, the healthiest relationships that I admire manage conflict really well, and they talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious from you guys, is like, when you guys do have disagreements or maybe not see eye to eye, how do you guys reconcile that?
Chat GPT. No, actually valid facts. Yeah. And I hope everyone's laughing because, you know, everyone knows like, hey, Chat GPT is like my in-pocket, like therapist, you know. No, but on a more serious note, it's just like, you know, the truth is like, I mean, this is tough to say, but it's like people wait until everything's in this awful place to get like professional instruction, to get therapy. And I will just tell you right now, it's just kind of like, at a very, very early on when it comes to navigating conflict, we're both Leos. We're both born in late summer. We both, in most rooms, are very strong-willed and opinionated and can shine. And if you read about it, two Leos, it's like it's either the best or the worst. And so it's kind of scary. What one are we going to be? And in conflict, some of that tough side comes out where it's just like you fall all the way down the mountain together, just like frustrated. And so it's kind of like getting great instruments and methods and tools and starting to recognize. So I'd say it's actually understanding. It's like we need in advance to go get educated and understand like what's happening with our personality types. So it's kind of like the way we navigate conflict is working more and more and more on the skill set of navigating conflict and understanding that if we just kind of bury it in the sand and be in denial, it's like, let's just avoid ever having conflict because we know how tough it can get. It's like, no, we have to understand, you know, and it's cool because you see these inspirations that are like, hey, the best couples, the ones that last the whole way, that have the most amazing connection, it's not that they have an absence of debate, fighting, or anything. It's how they navigate and how quickly they can stay on the 95% that is their greatness and not let the 5% own them. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It reminds me of, you know, one of my best friends, and she's been on here, her name's Bea Voce. She's a world-renowned relationship therapist, and she talks about that the skill needed to really make a relationship thrive is repair. Yeah. How quickly can you repair? It's not a matter of if you're going to conflict, if you're going to have disagreement, if there's going to be friction. It's how quickly can you get back on the wagon when that does happen.
Yeah. Novak Djokovic does the same thing in tennis. He's like, when it goes bad, it's okay for me to embrace those feelings and smash my racket and everything, but it's how quickly I'm able to like compartmentalize it, take those deep breaths and pivot.
Get back on.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the other thing that I'm learning is just kind of like, to be honest, like, you know, for better or worse, and just embracing and accepting your past. I did grow up in a home where it was kind of like debate, contention was just not a thing. Mm-hmm. Everyth's fine all the time.
Right.
And real talk, I didn't develop a lot of skills of navigating conflict because you can't admit anything's a problem.
Right.
And I'm not throwing a shade at anything. It just didn't have that skill.
Yeah. You know, and our parents didn't learn. No one ever taught them. It's a skill set you got to learn, right?
Yeah. And it was just kind of like you go through it and someone's like really frustrated, and it's just kind of like, prime time is like, no, like we can overcome anything. It's not a problem. And it's like, versus saying, hey, are you dealing with this? Can you sit in this for a minute and stay in the fact that you're angry or that you're depressed and allow a bad day to happen?
Yeah.
That is something that, I'm learning probably the most, but we're learning together is kind of like a safe space to kind of be able to embrace and then pivot. Takes a lot of like,
I mean, this is the number one skill to learn. This is literally my next book is on this that comes out in Q2.
Oh, that's awesome.
But the number one skill you can learn as a human being is to increase your capacity and your willingness to feel unpleasant emotions.
Yeah.
Like fear is here. I'm willing to feel it.
Yeah.
Uncertainty is here. That's okay.
Yeah.
Sadness, frustration, anger, it's all here. There's space for it all. I'm going to invite it in. It's okay. I can handle it, right? Without being reactive or suppressing or denial or pushing it away, because what you push away gets bigger.
Yeah. And I think too, the thing that I've learned through my own kind of like wellness journey, self-care, mental health, and getting good instruction, when attachment is conditional, where it's like, hey, you need to have an anchor that says, hey, no matter kind of what's going on, it's okay to feel these feelings, but you're always going to be attached to kind of like the most important people in your life. And you have that inner circle. It's like, I haven't always had that. Yes, you have loving kindness around you, but if it's like, hey, if you're not this way or you don't do this, the attachment's conditional. And that kind of has an effect on you. Something that I love about my wife, I've said it enough times, I probably won't get emotional, but it's like, I've just never had the sunlight of loyalty and someone having my back shine on me ever at the level with her. And when you say, how did you know? It's like, it goes so far beyond attraction and, that she's literally like the most beautiful individual in like any setting. The way that she prioritizes like me and makes me feel like, hey, I will throw punches on your behalf if I feel it's necessary. In many cases, it was like, hey, Kevin, just dismiss the fact you're nervous or whatever. It's like, it's weird. At work and at home, I've never had an inner circle that's just like, dude, we will not let anything happen to you. It's crazy. And just kind of when you have that on your side, it's everything. And so, imagine someone talking like this, what they're willing to do to kind of prioritize those people and say like, hey, what can I do for us to be together and succeed? Like, and it just brings out your best.
Yeah, it's just unconditional love and acceptance.
Correct.
Regardless of how you perform or what you've done there's unconditional.
Yeah. And just even that embracing where it's like people, it's funny. We talked about some different people on this podcast and like, a Brad Rosser brings something to the table, a Jordan Brenning brings something to the table, and there's different similarities and differences, but it's like, you want to be around people that are proud of you, that actually like, we need what you have. Mega, be here. It's just like, it doesn't matter. It's like, you're just like, I'll do whatever it takes to be part of something where I'm welcomed and needed. I mean, I've done pretty okay in my career and I have a life I'm proud of, but I'm just that same vulnerable person who wants to be places where they want you versus like, hey, how do we solve something to make this fit in this corner? You want to be at the place where they're just kind of like, we're so grateful we have you with us.
Yeah.
And then you reflect it.
Totally. I mean, it's that everyone at their core has the same desire, and that's love and acceptance from the people in their life.
100%.
Right? Fully loved, fully accepted. So, I want to, as we kind of wrap this up here, Kevin, you talk, it seems like you're going through a new chapter, right? Where it's now you and a companion, right? What are you hoping this next version of Kevin is going to look like now that it seems like there's co-creation?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, we want to build a life where the memory dividend is like trillions. You know what I mean? It's just like, go have those experiences, prioritizing family, we're kind of working on that process. And I just think it's one of those things where it's like, I just want to be focused on like that holistic wellness,
What is that to you? When you talk about holistic wellness, what is that specifically?
Well, it's tricky because there's these punchlines out there around the whole person paradigm. And I just feel like it just spits out like you can go buy it at Walmart,
Yeah.
But I think it's really understanding. I mean, I'll level with you. It's like, I grew up in that very kind of strict LDS household, and And I'm going to kind of say my experience. This doesn't influence anyone else's belief. There was a kind of a turning point on a variety of levels where it's like I kind of said, hey, you know, I'm kind of graduating away from this and I'm going on a different path. You know, I have my own relationship and faith, but the praying factor, you asked earlier, do you meditate, do you pray and stuff? The praying that I did my entire life, I mean, we're talking like years and years and years, kind of like absent of like really that method happening.
Yeah.
Well, holy cow. I'm married. I have this amazing wife and stuff. We pray every night together. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like that thing about finding kind of your spot. And so it's like on the spiritual side, it's big. And I can feel God's energy coming into play as this next level of kind of awareness of kind of my story with God and our story together with his influence in our life. That's like one piece. Next piece, you know, Andrea is this amazing chef, but she also is just like this very high level manager of our nutrition. And, you know, she's in her amazing persuasive way. I've never eaten healthier. Like, I mean, it's crazy.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's like, you know, just all across the board. She laughs. She's like, you probably didn't notice. Like, I go find like, you know, the Fruity Pebbles and they just disappeared, didn't they? You know what I mean? Like just completely overhauling, you know, what we're putting into our bodies. And we all know that how that works, how that, you know, affects your mind and everything. You know, we moved downtown and we said, hey, our lives are crazy with work and everything. And it was really hard for us to get just finding the time, you know, to have this like connection on working out. You know, I told you before we launched into this, we live at Hardware, you know, right across from the Delta Center. They have one of the nastiest gyms you'll ever see. That's what my guy said, dude, that gym is nasty. It's so like sick. Literally we exit our townhouse. I'm not exaggerating, walk 13 steps and we're in the gym. So we'll gym and then sauna on the resort deck basically every night. Or when we go to the gym. Yeah, exactly. So when you say the holistic wellness, it's just like it's happening. And I just didn't come up that way. I didn't come up with like, I'm a gym rat. I was an athlete. It's part of my life.
How it's all tied to well-being, right?
And it's all tied to that relationship, which to be honest, that's my advice. If you can prioritize the wellness journey around your partner, dude, game effing over.
Yeah. What a dream.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's really inspiring, man. It seems like, you know, from my perspective, there's like all these different versions of Kevin.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited to see what this next version looks like, because it feels like where a lot of the growth is going to come is from together.
Yeah, 100%. And you just, like I say, the undiscovered country, right? We don't know what we don't know. So you put yourself in position to have like, you know, hopefully good experience that help you grow. And I think that, you know, I know what it's like to be kind of around searching, you know, and trying to hold a standard and say, I got to find someone and stuff. But I would just say that like, I actually really do believe that like if people work on themselves and put in that effort, that life will grant you the right things. And that's how it worked for me. And so it's like, you know, people just need to keep going and prioritizing that, you know, and it will come together.
Well said, brother. Well, I'm so stoked to have you, man. It's very clear that seems like some of your best music hasn't been played yet.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited.
And I'm looking forward to what K-Swiss creates moving forward.
Yeah, appreciate that. And honestly, it's like one of the things I love about, you know, today is all these relationships that have a real history. You know, you never know when, you know, a big name like Doug Cartwright is going to drop a text, say, hey, I want you on the show. Can you make this time work? And I'm like, I'll drop everything. So it's really fun to have family still over so much time.
All love, brother. Really glad you made it out.
Okay, awesome. Thanks,
love
dude.
You, brother.
Yep, you too.